Hello dear students, my name is Dr. Vishali Gai and the name of this channel is Tricks by Chemistry Guru. So today for class 12th we have Solid State chapter 1. So let us start with the basic introduction of solid state. Generally when we talk about the word solid, we say that a solid is a substance or it is a form of matter which possesses rigidity. So I should say that it is a form of matter. We know that there are three major states of matter: solid, liquid and gas. And it possesses rigidity. That means it has high rigidity and possesses a definite shape and definite volume. So this is the basic introduction about solid that you all knows, that it has definite shape and definite volume. That means its volume, its shape does not change. Let's move further, and when we talk about the solids, we say that the particles are very closely packed and the distances, internuclear distances, are very small. They have the fixed space, they have high density, they are incompressible. All these are some important properties of solid. Moving further, we'll classify the solid into two categories: amorphous solid and crystalline solid. So basically what are these two? When we talk about the difference between the two, first of all, the solid is basically or broadly classified into two categories: amorphous and crystalline. So if I ask you what amorphous solid is or what crystalline solid is, so we generally say that when particles are not having the fixed arrangement, that means they are not arranged in a regular fashion or in a regular pattern, we call it as amorphous solid. Whereas when we talk about the crystalline solid, they always are arranged in regular fashion. They are arranged in a regular fashion. So we call them as crystalline solids. This is not only the thing. When we talk about the regular fashion, means it's a fixed or the symmetric arrangement of the particles, constituent particles present in a solid. And here the arrangement is not proper. Any particle can come anywhere, anytime. Somewhere we have high density, somewhere we have low density, but in crystalline they have a constant density, they have a constant arrangement of particles. So since they do not arrange regularly, and thus we can say that they have irregular shape, but they have a definite shape. And shapes we generally consider in terms of the geometric means. So they have definite geometrical shapes. Next, when we talk about the amorphous, we say that their melting point is a range. They melt over a range of temperature. That means it's not like that ki a particular substance I have taken and it has a fixed melting point. It starts melting at a particular temperature and keep on melting with an increase of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. Whereas in this case they have sharp melting point. If I say the melting point of a substance, it is around 32 degrees Celsius, it means sharp melting point means a fixed value we can fix for that substance. So always the crystalline substances have sharp melting point. Another thing is they are isotropic. Amorphous solids, when we talk about, we say that they are isotropic. What is this isotropic? Isotropic, when we say that they have same properties in all directions, whereas they are anisotropic. Anisotropic means when we try to find their physical properties, we have different properties in different directions. So different direction, when we try to find out, say, refractive index, we'll find that they have different refractive index in different directions. Say in x-axis they have different value, in y-axis they have different value. We call these amorphous solids as the pseudo solids because they are not the correct solids. They are generally the super cool liquids, but they are true solids. So the basic difference are these about their arrangement, and on the basis of arrangement they'll show further different properties. So these are some important properties of crystalline amorphous. Let us discuss some examples of crystalline. Any ionic solid like sodium chloride, copper sulfate, any covalent solid like graphite, like diamond, they are having a fixed definite arrangement. So they all are characterized as crystalline solid. When we talk about amorphous, we have wood, we have rubber, we have glass. All these are amorphous solids. That's That means they do not show some specific arrangement of atoms, and because of that they show different type of behavior. That means they are not considered as true solids, or they are super cooled liquid. So this is the basic broad classification of solid. Let's move further. And since amorphous we say that they are not true solids, so we'll talk about the crystalline solids in detail. So when we talk about the crystalline solid, majorly crystalline solid to 4 categories. We classify crystalline solids into 4 categories. So let us discuss crystalline solids in detail. And as I've told you that crystalline solid means a definite regular arrangement is there. So I talk about the types. We have ionic solid, molecular solid, we have covalent solids, and we have metallic solids. So these are 4 major categories of these crystalline solids. On what basis they basically categorized or classified? So suppose I talk about the constituent particles present in all those 4 solids. So in ionic, the constituent particles are ions, may it be cation, may it be anion, or it is both. So in ionic solid, the constituent particles are ions. Whereas in molecular solid, the constituent particles are molecules, may it be polar molecule, may it be non-polar molecule. So the constituent particles are molecules. When we talk about covalent solids, which is also known as network solid, the constituent particles are atoms. Whereas in metallic solid, we have the ions, the positive ions in a sea of electrons. We generally call them as kernels, K-E-R-N-E-L-S. So the constituent particles in ionic, it is ions, in molecular molecules, covalent atoms, and in metallic, they are kernels. When we move further, we will talk about the second point about their difference, and is the bonding forces. So when we talk about ionic, what type of bonding forces we have? Ionic bond we have, so we call it as electrostatic or Coulombic electrostatic force of attraction. Coulombic electrostatic forces of attraction. When we talk about molecules, so intermolecular forces are there. So we have intermolecular forces as London forces, we have van der Waals forces, and we have hydrogen bonding. All these are basically the intermolecular forces that are observed in the case of molecular solid. When we talk about covalent, we have covalent bonds, and thus the bonding is still the covalent bonding. When we talk about metals, we have metallic bond between them. So metallic bonding is there. So bonding and the force of attraction actually separates them, segregate them. Let us move further to the next category, and the next point of classification is their nature. So when I talk about the nature of ionic solid, they are mostly hard, but they brittle. They are hard, but they are brittle. When we talk about molecular solid, they are very soft. When we talk about covalent solids, they are very hard. And one of the very good example is diamond, carbides, they are very hard. Similarly, when we talk about metallic solid, mostly they are soft, mostly they are hard, but sometimes they may be soft also, like sodium, potassium, lithium, they are soft. So this is about their nature. Let us move further and discuss another point, and that is the melting point. So they have ions, since they have strong force, so they have high melting point. They have weak forces, molecular, so they have very low or low melting point. When we talk about covalent, again, very hard physical nature, very hard behavior, and very strong bonding, and thus they have very high melting point. As I told you, diamond and carbides. When I talk about metals, again those which are hard, they have very high melting point, and those which are soft, they have low melting point. So sometimes we may have high or low melting point found in the case of metallic solid. So after so many discussion about these types of solids, let us discuss about various examples. So what are these examples? So if I talk about the examples of ionic solid, I say that all ionic substances like NaCl, like MgO, like copper sulfate, all these are ionic solids. When I talk about molecular solids, so in molecular solid we talk about dry ice, that is solid CO2. We talk about HCl in solid form. We talk about noble gases in solid form. So they are some examples. Even we talk about normal ice water in solid form. So they are some good examples of molecular solid. Let us talk about covalent, and good example is diamond, Another example is graphite. Some more examples are carbides, like I take silicon carbide, like I take silica, silicon dioxide. So all these are examples of covalent. Let's move further, and when we talk about metallic, we say that all metals are examples of this category. Even alloys of metals also considered under this category. So this is about the classification of crystalline solids. So we have four categories: ionic, molecular, covalent and metallic. So after this, let us move to the next point, and the next category we have is space lattice. Let us move to the dimension part, and we call it as space lattice and unit cell. What is this basically? So when I talk about the bonding in solids, so they should be arranged in a particular pattern. So when I talk about the arrangement of pattern, a regular arrangement, So now after the classification of crystalline solid, we'll move to the next topic, and that we have is the space lattice and unit cell. Let us discuss these two. So when I talk about the space lattice and unit cell, let me tell you this is related with the bonding or the categorization of different constituent particles to give a particular shape to a crystal. So when I talk about the space lattice, we generally say that it is a regular arrangement of what? Of constituent particles. Constituent particles, for ionic solid it is ion, as we have just discussed. For covalent solid it is atoms. For molecular solid it is molecules, and so on. So it is the regular arrangement of constituent particles of a crystal in a three-dimensional arrangement. So three-dimensional arrangement में किस तरह से these constituent particles have been arranged, we call that arrangement as a space lattice. Sometimes we call it as crystal lattice also. And what is unit cell? So when I talk about unit cell, we say that it is the smallest three-dimensional portion of complete space lattice. So that means you take a small portion, a small three-dimensional portion of space lattice, we call it as unit cell, which when repeated over and again, what we get in different directions, we get unit cell. So suppose if I say a complete building is a three-dimensional regular arrangement, we call it as space lattice. And a building is made up of various floors, different rooms, walls, and the wall is made up of a brick. So that brick is considered to be the unit cell. So space lattice is somewhat the whole building, and unit cell is that the structural unit in the form of brick, which is three-dimensional arrangement. So this is how we can explain a unit cell or space lattice. So what makes a particular shape, what gives particular shape to unit cell? That means what are the parameters? So if I ask you the parameter of unit cell, that means what decides the shape of unit cell. If I say a unit cell is a square, if unit cell is rectangular, if unit cell is cubic, so what decides the shape of unit cell? So the two parameters are, one is the dimensions along the edges. That means if I talk about the edges, suppose I am having a cubic structure. If I have this cubic structure, then all these edges, let me write this, say this is A, this is B, and this one is C, length, breadth, height, I should say. So these are the dimensions that decides what type of shape of this unit cell would be. So if all A, B, C are equal, then I say that yes, it may be cubic shape. Let us move further and talk about another parameter, and the parameter is angles between the edges. Angles between the edges. So what are these angles? So let me write this as alpha and beta. Alpha, beta and gamma between A and C. So we are having three angles. Let me write alpha between B and C, beta between A and C, and gamma between A and B. So we are having three angles. So if I say the cubic system, all these three angles are exactly same and they are equal to 90 degree. So if we have all three dimensions same, and all angles are same which are equal to 90 degree, I call that shape as cubic. If I say that A and B are equal but C is not equal but all angles are equal to 90 degree, I get it as tetragonal. That means there are different type of unit cells found in nature. So it has been observed that there are around 7 unit cells. 7 unit cells found in nature. And what are these 7? It is given in your NCERT. We have cubic, we have tetragonal, there is a table given. You may have such questions in your exams also. Orthorhombic, which is sometimes also known as rhombic. We may have monoclinic, we have triclinic, then we have rhombohedral, and last we have is hexagonal. So how do they differ? They differ only in these parameters. And we consider cubic is the most symmetric form because here all the 3 edges are same and all 3 angles are same and they are equal to 90 degrees. So I should say cubic is the most symmetric form. Whereas when I talk about triclinic, it is the most unsymmetric form where none of the dimension is same and even none of the angle is equal and they are not equal to 90 degree also. That is triclinic. Rest other lies in between all these categories. So most symmetric and most unsymmetric are these two. Cubic, the most symmetric one, and triclinic, the most unsymmetric system. Now after this, how these unit cells have been arranged and how they contain or consist of different constituent particles. So we have different types of lattice. So this arrangement or the classification of lattice is on the basis of the arrangement of constituent particles at different part of the unit cell. We generally assume that yes, constituent particles are present, so they must be at the corner and that gives a particular shape. Like if we join the centers of these, then I get the shape of rectangle. So based on the arrangement of the crystalline particles in a unit cell, we basically have 2 types of lattice. And they are the primitive lattice and the non-primitive one. When we talk about the primitive lattice, we call that the particles are present only at the corners. The constituent particles are present only at the corners. We call them as primitive lattice. When we talk about non-primitive lattice, we are further having categories as face-centered, body-centered, and end-centered. So basically what are these? When I talk about the non-primitive, the first category is face-centered. It means the constituent particles are present at the corners along with each face of the unit cell. Suppose I take an example of a cubic system. And in cubic system, if I consider that the particles are present at the corners 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We know that there are 8 corners. Along with that, the particles are present at each face. If I ask you how many faces are there in a cube? Yes, there are 6 faces. So 1, एक ऊपर, एक नीचे, 2. एक left or right, 3, 4. एक आगे, एक पीछे, 5, 6. So there are 6 faces. So this is the arrangement of face-centered cubic system. When I talk about the body-centered, I say that the particles are present definitely at the corners along with in the center of unit cell. That means in the middle. Suppose I talk about a cubic system, then a diagonal that passes from one place to another, and it passes, so it comes through a ball in between, a constituent particle. I should say a room in which you are sitting. Suppose it is cubic, a ball is hanging in between just like a fan. So that is the body centered. So they are present at the corners, definitely 8 corners, and one is present exactly in the center of this unit cell. We call it as body centered. Let's move further to end centered, and in end centered we talk about the particles are definitely present at the corners along with any 2 opposite or alternate face of the cube. So suppose I'm taking again the cubic system, and in cubic system what will happen? We'll be having the particles at the corners along with, take any two opposite faces. Suppose I have taken up and down, you can take left and right, you can take front and back. So that is and centered. That means they are present at or only in between two opposite faces. So we call it as and centered. So based on the arrangement of these non-primitive, we find that the 7 crystal systems that we have just discussed now, like cubic, triclinic, hexagonal, rhombohedral, orthorhombic, all these are categorized into, or in nature they found in the form of these primitive and non-primitive unit cells. So total of 14 such unit cells or lattices are found in nature. So basically, if I say that Bravais lattice, so Bravais, actually the person who has observed these lattices for the first time, and he said that there are 14 such Bravais lattices found, corresponds to 7 crystal systems. And what are these? So if I talk about cubic, so cubic exists in nature as simple. Simple means primitive. It exists as face centered, and it exists as body centered. Never exists in the form of end centered. Similarly, if I talk about tetragonal, tetragonal in nature exists as simple and exists as body centered. In nature, when we talk about orthorhombic, this is the only possibility that exists in all 4 possibilities. That means simple, face centered, body centered, and end centered cubic system. When we talk about the 4th crystal system, monoclinic. So monoclinic exists as only 2, simple and body centered. When we talk about the 5th, triclinic, the most unsymmetric, and thus it exists only in simple form. When I talk about rhombohedral, rhombohedral exists again only in simple form. And last, when I talk about hexagonal, that is the 7th crystal system, exists only in simple crystal form or simple unit cell. That means face centered, body centered, and centered has been not observed in these 3 cases. So counting these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there are 14 such unit systems are present. We call them as Bravais lattice, as he observed for the very first time that these crystal systems are found in nature. So this is about the arrangement of constituent particles and various categories. Let's move further and we'll discuss about the packing. The packing of atoms, how they are arranged in a particular system or crystal system. So we may have different arrangement. We may have a packing 1 dimension. We may have packing in 2 dimension. We may have packing in 3 dimensions. So let us discuss all these packings one by one in crystals. So this is basically the close packing in crystals. So first I'm having as 1 dimension packing. So 1 dimension means you are moving, suppose you have selected only one x-axis and try to arrange the constituent particles. So it will go only in one line touching each other. This is 1 dimension packing. If I talk about 2 dimension packing, so in 2 dimension packing, the arrangement would be like this. This is 1 dimension, that means arranging all atoms close to each other, and 2 dimension, that means now this is x-axis and we try to place these constituent particles in y-axis also, just one above the other. And then 2 dimension, it goes this way only, the next layer. So this is x-axis, this is y-axis, so it goes in 2 dimension, in multi-layer. So if I talk about the coordination number in this case, take any atom in between and we see that it is in contact with 2 such spheres, and thus the coordination number for 1 dimension packing is 2. That means a sphere is in contact with 2 different spheres. When I talk about the coordination number for such case, if I talk about any atom, constituent particle in between, so if I see that it is in contact with 4 such spheres, so coordination number for this sphere is 4. Similarly, there is one more possibility for 2 dimension packing, like we place the billiard balls one above the other. So one layer, second layer not above the first layer, rather on the gaps or the voids of the first layer. How the eggs have been stacked in the egg trays on the gaps of the first. So this is x-axis, this is y-axis, but in this case we find that this is very close axis. The particles are very closely packed. Suppose I try to find out the coordination number, I take this atom and I see that it is in contact with 6 such spheres. So its coordination number would be 6. If I join the spheres of the touching atoms, we found that it comes in the form of a square, and thus this type of packing we call it as square close packing. And here we get the shape of hexagon on touching or taking the centers of all touching spheres, we get the hexagonal close packing. So here the coordination number is 4 and here the coordination number comes out to be 6. Let us move to 3-dimension packing. I hope this packing is clear to you all, and let's move to 3-dimension packing. So in 3-dimension packing, we observe that the particles have two possibilities. If I continue with the square close packing, it goes only this way, that one layer, the second layer, the second layer, second dimension, sorry, and the third dimension means this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and the z-axis means the arranging there towards us. That means all stacks are one above the other. It goes this way. So we can see that all these are one above the other. So if I talk about the middle layer means it has one layer below it, it has one layer above it. So I say that it is in contact with 4 in the same plane, 1 above and 1 below. Again listen, 4 in the same plane, and if I am saying that one layer is above it and another layer is below it, then it has one sphere in contact with it above it and another sphere below it. So the coordination number for such case comes out to be 4 plus 1 plus 1, that is 6. So for 3-dimensional packing, this same square close packing will become more close and the coordination packing or the coordination number comes out to be 6. Let us talk about the hexagonal close packing, how to retain the hexagonal close packing and what type of arrangement or packing do we have. So suppose I am having this one layer, second layer comes on the voids, and third layer again on the void of this one. So if I talk about the arrangement, this is the first layer, x-axis, second layer, y-axis, and now if I talk about the third layer. So third layer we may have the possibility, if you could see the arrangement of these triangles, one is pointing downward and other is pointing upward. So you can see if I place the next layer on the spheres or the projections of first layer in this way. So if I take only 3 atoms, then the second layer has been placed above this one. So this is the first layer, this is second layer, and now if I ask you where the third layer has to be placed, so I have a possibility where I can place the first layer just above the first layer and the fourth layer on the second layer. That means first layer is this one, second layer is this one, third layer again on the spheres of first layer, fourth layer again on the sphere of second layer, then first layer, then second layer. So if I say first layer as A packing, second layer as B packing, so in 3 dimension it will continue as AB, AB, AB type of pack. So this is x-axis, this is y-axis. If I talk about the second layer, so second layer definitely I have to place somewhere here. So this is first layer, this is second layer. That means if I say it as A packing, this is B packing. Now the question is where the third layer has to be placed. The third layer can be placed on the one layer, it will become this one. But I have another possibility not to place third layer either on first layer or on second layer. I'll place third layer somewhere differently, not on first layer, not on second layer. That means I have a triangle first layer this way, then I have a sphere this way, green color you can see, then I have another triangle this way. That means this is become the third packing, which is different from first or second layer. So first layer, if I say it as A layer, second B layer, third C layer, fourth again A layer, then B layer, then C layer. If this type of packing goes, then I'll be having the arrangement as ABC, ABC, ABC type of packing. So when I have AB type of packing, I call it as hexagonal close packing in 3 dimension, and if I'll be having ABC type of packing, I have it as cubic closed packing in 3 dimension. So both are having the same coordination number, that is 12. Why same? Because 6 in the same sphere, same plane, 6 in the same plane, 3 above and 3 below. So 6 plus 3 plus 3, that makes 12 total, as the 12 as the coordination number in these two 3-dimensional packing. So this is about the packing of crystal system, how the packing takes place. Now after packing, let us talk about the next topic, that is packing efficiency. That means if I would like to find which one is more strongly packed and which one is not. Secondly, when I talk about packing efficiency, I should say what is the percentage of total space filled by particles. So percentage of total space filled by particle, we call it as packing efficiency. That means if they are closely packed, then the empty space is less and this packing efficiency would be more. So how to find it out? So for this we are having a formula. Let us discuss one by one. So first of all, let us take a simple or the primitive unit cell and try to find the packing efficiency in simple cubic unit cell. When I talk about a simple cubic unit cell, let me draw this cube here, and I say that the particles are present at the corners. So particles are present at the corners. So there are 8 corners and thus 8 particles are supposed to be present. So this is how I have drawn. But the thing is, the particles are very close to each other. Actually they touch each other. So suppose I take only one dimension A. So this A dimension will be having the particle, they actually touch each other this way, and this is the radius, right? So if I consider this to be A and these two are the radius, then what is the relation between the two? A is equals to 2R. I need to find the relation between A and R. And to find the packing efficiency, we have a formula, and the formula is volume of constituent particles, that means spheres, multiplied by number of constituent particles divided by volume of cube. So how to find it out? Let us talk about volume of constituent particles. Since constituent particles are spherical, so the volume comes out to be 4 by 3 pi r cube. What is the number of constituent particle? For this cubic system, which is simple, we say that this one cube, if it is in crystal system, it is in contact with one cube this side, one cube above, one cube this side. That means a single cube which has a corner, it is in contact with 8 such cubic system which are sharing a single corner. That means each corner is sharing 8 such unit cells. That means if you try to arrange these cubic boxes this way, you can see they are 4 in one plane and 4 बिल्कुल इसके ऊपर आ जाएंगे. So this corner has been occupied by 1, 2, 3, 4 compartments of 4 cubes behind this and 4 cubes above this. So this corner has been shared by total 8 unit cells. So in each unit cell, if I talk about the contribution of this corner would be 1 by 8. And total such 8 corners are present, so it would be the contribution or the number of constituent particle per unit cell will remain 1 for simple cubic unit cell. So this number of constituent particle that we call Z as 1 divided by volume of cube, that is A cube. So if I put the value of A is equals to 2R for simple cubic, it comes out to be 4 by 3 pi r cube multiplied by 1 divided by 2R whole cube, multiply by 100. Definitely we are going to find the percentage, so we need to multiply it by 100, and on solving this we come out to be pi by 6, that is 52.4%. Pi by 6 into 100, that is 52.4%. So this is the packing efficiency of simple cubic unit cell. So after the packing efficiency of simple, let us talk about the packing efficiency of face-centered cubic structure. So we have the same formula for packing efficiency, and the formula is the volume of sphere or the constituent particles multiplied by Z. Z is the number of constituent particle per unit cell in crystal system, divided by volume of cube, as I have taken cubic system, multiplied by 100. So let us first of all find the value of Z, what Z comes out to be. For this, let me draw a cube again. Say this, I am having a cube. And this cube is having the particles present at the corners as well as at each face. So up and down, left and right, front and back. So I have these. Let me take one complete face of this cube and make these constituent particles closer to each other this way. And I'm making one more constituent particle that is present on the face. This is how it takes place. Now let me write the number in the label ABC, and this makes a triangle, a right angle triangle. So here it says that AC square is equals to AB square plus BC square. Now the thing is, AB is nothing but 2R because these two spheres actually touch each other. So AB is, if I take this as A, this is A. So AB is, I can take A square, BC I can take as A square. These are two edges. And what is AC? AC is 1R, 2R and plus 2R. So it goes 4R. So 4R whole square. So let me take 4R is equals to 2A square, or it becomes root 2A. So A comes out to be 4 by root 2R. That is the relation between A and R that we are supposed to put here. What is Z here? Z is basically, if I talk about the atoms at the corner, for corners the contribution is 8 into 1 by 8. Plus we have atoms at each face. So suppose I'm having one atom at each face, and I'll be having one more cube that's sharing this face. That actually is sharing this face. So actually one face is shared by two cubes, and thus for each particle the contribution to a particular unit cell would be 2. And how many such constituent particles are present on each face? There are 6 faces. So now the Z comes out to be 1 plus 3, that is 4. So Z would be 4 here. Let us put the value, the relation between A and R and Z. So volume of constituent particles, that is 4 by 3 pi R cube divided by A cube. A, I'll take it as 4 by root 2 R whole cube. Multiply by what is the value of Z? Z is 4, multiply by 100. So on solving this, what do we get? We get the final answer, that is nothing but the packing efficiency of face centered, and it comes out to be 74%. It means the 74% has been occupied by the packing, whereas the same was only 52.4% in the case of simple cubic unit cell. So now we can say this is more closely packed and they are compactly arranged. Particles are very closely packed. So this is about the face centered. Let us talk about the value for body centered. So we'll discuss about the packing efficiency of body centered cube. So in body centered, basically when we talk about body centered, we say that the particle is present. First of all, they are present at the corners, at each corner definitely, and one particle is present in the center. So that if we try to connect these two, I need to draw a diagonal. आगे वाले हिस्से को पीछे वाले से connect कर दिया. I need to draw a diagonal so that I can pass through this. So if I take this as the diagonal, this one, this is the front face, this is the rear face, the back side face. Okay. And definitely they are present at each corner also. So this is how it takes place. So I'm having this body centered cubic arrangement. Let us find Z and find the relation between A and R. So if I talk about Z, the contribution is 8 into 1 by 8 for the atoms at the corner, along with this atom lies only in the center of this unit cell. That means it is not in contact with any other unit cell. So it has its whole contribution to this unit cell and not to any other unit cell. And thus it comes out to be 1 plus 1, that is 2. So for Z, for BCC, body centered cube, Z comes out to be 2. Let us find the relation between A and R. So when I talk about A and R, I need to take a triangle first of all. So this is the diagonal. So this makes a triangle. So let me mark this A, B and C. So I can see that AC square is equals to again AB square plus BC square. As this is the diagonal triangle, you can imagine. So this is A, this is not A. As we have just discussed now, this is root 2A. अभी हमने face centered में पढ़ा था because this is face centered diagonal. So what is first of all AC? 4R, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is 4R whole square is equals to what I take AB is A square. What I take BC is root 2A whole square. That means 2A square. So that comes out to be 3A square, and if I take 4R, it becomes root 3A. So what is the relation between A and R? A and R is 4 by root 3R. A is equals to 4 by root 3R. So if I put this value in this equation, the equation is packing efficiency is equals to Z into 4 by 3 pi R cube divided by A cube multiplied by 100. So I'll just put the value of A as 4 by root 3 pi R cube, 4 by root 3 R whole cube in place of A. I'll get the answer as 68%. So this is 68% means this is the space occupied by the constituent particles. So if I ask you which one is more closely packed, so it is face centered. Less closely packed is simple cubic system. So this is how we can find the packing efficiency, and you should remember these percentage also. Let's move further. So now after the packing efficiency, let us talk about the tetrahedral and octahedral void. Basically, what are these? So in the close packing structure, as we have discussed HCP or CCP, hexagonal close packing or cubic close packing, we observe two types of voids, tetrahedral and octahedral void. First of all, when we talk about their radii of these voids and they are related to, the radius of say tetrahedral void is 0.225 as compared to radius of a sphere. The radius of tetrahedral void is 0.225 as compared to the radius of the constituent particle or the sphere, whereas the radius of octahedral void is 0.414 times the radius of the sphere. So radius of tetrahedral void is 0.225 as compared to the radius of sphere. Sphere means constituent particle, whereas the radius of octahedral void is 0.414 times of the radius of sphere or the constituent particle. So basically when I talk about these two voids, what type of question we may have in the NCERT. Let us see what is the difference. The difference is the tetrahedral void is much smaller, whereas the octahedral void is, yes, as compared to tetrahedral, bigger, but yes, it is also smaller as compared to the sphere. When we talk about tetrahedral void, it is surrounded by 4 spheres. The tetrahedral void is always surrounded by 4 spheres, whereas the octahedral void is surrounded by 6 spheres. And thus the coordination number for tetrahedral void comes out to be 4, and coordination number for octahedral void comes out to be 6, as it is surrounded by 4 such spheres and it is surrounded by 6 spheres. When we talk about any HCP or CCP packing, for tetrahedral, each sphere is contact with 3 spheres in the layer. So suppose I'm having this type of arrangement. So I'm having this type of void. So it is in contact with 3 spheres in the layer above it and 3 spheres in the layer below it. So it forms that one tetrahedral void is actually lying one above and one below, complete 3 layers. That means there are 3 spheres पे कितना void हुआ? 1 void हुआ. So if I could say that how many voids are there per sphere, because we are having complete 2 layers, so there are 2 tetrahedral voids present per sphere. So if I'm having n sphere, it would be 2n. That means I could say that the number of tetrahedral voids is double the number of spheres. Whereas when I talk about octahedral void, since octahedral void is combination of two voids of two layer, and thus the number of octahedral void is equal to half of number of tetrahedral void. That means is equal to actually the number of spheres in the packing. So if I'll be having n sphere and I ask you how many octahedral voids do I have? Yes, we have n octahedral void. But how many tetrahedral voids do I have? It would be 2n. So suppose let us talk about a question, and question says that there are two atoms X and Y, where Y makes CCP packing. That means Y is basically the sphere. So Y I take N and X as cation occupy all octahedral voids. So the ratio of a sphere and octahedral void is same. So if I ask you what is the formula of the compound, it would be XY. But if I am saying that X occupies tetrahedral void, then what would be the formula? So if I take Y as N, then X becomes 2N. So Y and X will be having the ratio as X to Y. Is that clear? One more question if I give you that there is an HCP packing where B occupy HCP lattice and A occupy 2/3 of tetrahedral void. So if I take B as N, the A I'll be taking 2 into 2 by 3n. That means it comes out to be 4 by 3n. So the formula will become A4B3. This is how we can get the answer for such type of questions. So try practicing these questions. There are a number of questions given in your NCERT. Go with some reference book also. Let's move further to the next topic. So let us see how to calculate the density of cubic system from H. So I know the formula of density. Density is nothing but the mass per unit volume. So if I write density of unit cell, so definitely I will take the mass of unit cell divided by volume of unit cell. Now what is the mass of unit cell? So mass of unit cell is number of atoms in unit cell multiply by mass of each atom. एक एटम का मास मल्टीप्लाई बाय ऐसे कितने एटम्स है. सो ऐसे कितने एटम्स है उसको हम कहते हैं Z, और एक एटम के मास को हम कहते हैं एटॉमिक मास. राइट. नाउ व्हाट इज द मास ऑफ वन एटम? मास ऑफ ईच एटम. दिस इज मास ऑफ यूनिट सेल. This is mass of each atom, atomic mass. Come to the mole concept. We say that it is atomic mass divided by Avogadro number. That means atomic mass divided by Avogadro number. So let us substitute this value here. Density is rho. Mass of unit cell is number of atoms multiplied by, in place of m, this m, I'll write m atomic mass divided by Na. And what is this volume of unit cell? Volume of unit cell is nothing but AQ. But the unit of this A and rho should be same. Generally the density unit would be gram per centimeter cube. And generally the edge length would be given to you in picometer. So if it is given in picometer, if A is given in picometer and density is in gram per centimeter cube, that generally we have, then we'll multiply it by 10 to the power minus 30 so that this whole will be converted into centimeter. So finally it comes out to be gram per centimeter cube. If A is given in picometer, then only we'll multiply, because 1 picometer is 10 to the power minus 10 centimeter or 10 to the power minus 12 meter. So this is how we can calculate the value of density, or using this formula, if we know Z, if we know atomic mass, if we know Avogadro number, if we know A. So we can calculate density. Or somewhere might be in some question, you are supposed to find any of these parameter out of these 5. You are supposed to be calculate Z also. आपसे atomic mass पूछा जा सकता है, आपसे number पूछा जा सकता है, आपसे A पूछा जा सकता है. In case of A, आपको A cube का cube root करना पड़ेगा, then you can find A. So it may be somewhere the tricky calculation in this case, where you can use log easily to solve the questions easily, to make it simplify. So out of these 5 parameters, 4 will be given to you, and the 5th one you are supposed to find, that you can easily do. That is simple maths. Let's move further. Let us talk about the new topic, that is imperfections or defects in solids. So generally we say that crystalline solids means which are having a crystalline or the definite or the regular arrangement of constituent particles. But yes, in these constituent particles also we have some departure, some imperfections that we call as defect. So basically any departure from perfectly ordered arrangement we call it as defect or imperfection. So let's study about these defects or imperfections. So first of all, these defects are classified majorly into two categories: stoichiometric and non-stoichiometric defects. Stoichiometric and non-stoichiometric defect. We'll further categorize these stoichiometric defects into two categories. One is Schottky defect and another is Frenkel defect. Whereas when we talk about non-stoichiometric defect, we'll study again into two categories: metal excess defect and metal deficiency defect. Metal excess and metal deficiency. Metal excess again we study in two categories. Metal ज़्यादा होना यानी suppose I talk about A and B is a solid, A is metal, B is non-metal. तो A ज़्यादा हो जाए यानी एक्स्ट्रा आ जाए, या B कम हो जाए यानी एनायन कम हो जाए. सो अगर एनायन कम होते हैं तो वी कॉल इट एज एनायनिक वेकेंसी, और अगर A एक्स्ट्रा होता है तो वी कॉल इट एज एक्स्ट्रा केटायंस. कहाँ जाएंगे? इन interstitial site. They will go at interstitial site. So metal excess can be done either by the removal of B or by addition of extra A. Similarly, when we talk about metal deficiency, metal कम हो जाए, A कम हो जाए या B बढ़ जाए, तो B तो बढ़ नहीं सकते because B are anions, they are bigger, they cannot occupy small interstitial site. So in metal deficiency, we have only one possibility जिसमें A कम हो जाए. That means we are removing metal. So I could say it as cation vacancy. So it is possible only when we are having variable valencies for metal. We'll discuss here variable valency of metal will be considered here. Apart from these two, we are having one more defect that we call as impurity defect. Impurity defect means we add some impurity from outside, or some impurity has been added by any of the reason from outside that may change the conductivity for the system. So it can be done intentionally also sometimes to increase the conductivity, or it is by nature or by default also sometimes. So impurity defect will further categorize into ionic and covalent solids, and we'll discuss it in detail. So let us discuss all these defects one by one. I hope by now the defect, what defect is, will be clear to you. Let us discuss about the details of this defect. So when I talk about the first category, that is stoichiometric defect. Stoichiometric defect. I say that what stoichiometric defects are. Stoichiometric defect is when the formula would be same. That means when the ratio between cation and anion is same. So I should write it as ratio between cations and anions remain same. We call it as stoichiometric defects. That means cation and anion would be equal in number. Let us talk about the first case, Schottky defect. And when we talk about Schottky defect, I should say that when equal number of cations and anions are missing, equal number of cations and anions are missing, we call them as Schottky defect. When equal number of cations and anions are missing. Now, in what compounds this type of defect has been observed? Where we are having high coordination number. That means very close packing. So high coordination number is there. Another thing is when the difference in size is very less between cation and anion. The difference in size between cation and anion is small, then also we'll find such defect. And all alkali metal halides, generally the NaCl, KCl, KBr, these alkali metal halides will undergo this type of defect. If I ask you, what is the change in the density? Since they are missing, they leave the crystal system and thus density decreases. Keep in mind, in such cases the density of solid decreases, whereas the neutrality would be same. As jitne cation nikle utne anion nikle. The neutrality would be same as the equal number of cations and anions are missing from the system. So neutrality would be same, but the density decreases. Let us move to another category, that is Frankel defect. And in Frankel defect, what we observe is, Frankel defect says that when some cations leave its place from lattice site and occupy somewhere in interstitial position or interstitial site. That means cation do not leave the crystal system. Cation leaves its lattice site, अपनी जगह छोड़ दी. And कहाँ चले गए? Occupy some interstitial site. किसी interstitial site पे चले गए. We call it as Frankel defect. Leaves its space, leaves its lattice site and goes somewhere at some interstitial site. ऐसी जगह चले गए. Clear? So that is Frankel defect. Now in what compounds it observed? It is observed where we have or we find low coordination number. That means particles are apart from each other. Now if I ask you what is the change in density? Does the cation leave the crystal system? No, cation doesn't leave the crystal system. It remains in the system, बस वो अपनी जगह छोड़ के इधर से इधर आ गया. So no change in density. And since cation and anions are equal in number and thus the neutrality will also be same. So Frankel defect does not show any change in the density. And the silver halides generally show these type of compounds, AgCl, AgBr, AgI. In fact, AgBr is a compound that shows both these defects, Schottky defect as well as Frankel defect. So this is one of the very, very important for your competitive also, for your MCQ type questions also, that this AgBr is common example for Schottky and Frankel defect. So this is about the stoichiometric defect. Let us move further and discuss about the non-stoichiometric defect. When we talk about non-stoichiometric defect means formula तो change होगा भाई. अगर हमारे पास suppose ZNO है तो ZNO ही नहीं रहेगा, 1:1 ratio नहीं रहेगा. It may be 1:0.8, it may be 1.2:1, कुछ भी हो सकता है. Maybe cation ज़्यादा हो जाए, anion ज़्यादा हो जाए. So that means the ratio will get disturbed in non-stoichiometric. So let us discuss examples one by one. So as I have told you that in non-stoichiometric, first thing is the formula would not be same, it would be different, and it has various categories like metal axis defect. So when we talk about metal axis defect, we say that it is either due to anion, we can see that means anion अपनी जगह छोड़ के चलेगा. ठीक है जी, बात करते हैं. तो हुआ क्या, एनायन ने अपनी जगह छोड़ी और उसने क्रिस्टल सिस्टम को छोड़ के बाहर चला गया. एनायन लीव्स लैटिस छोड़ के बाहर चला गया. नाउ द थिंग इज, जब एनायन चला गया तो न्यूट्रलिटी डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगी एंड न्यूट्रलिटी डिस्टर्ब नहीं होनी चाहिए. सो टू मेंटेन द न्यूट्रलिटी, इक्वल नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स विल कम एंड ऑक्यूपाई these lattice sites. Electrons occupy lattice sites or they come in the crystal system. anion गए, जितने anion गए उतने electrons neutralize करने के लिए आ गए. So neutrality अभी भी maintain हो गई, but the neutrality has been maintained by electrons. So जो center, जितने center electron occupy करेंगे, that gives some color to the system. And thus these centers are known as F center. F word comes from a Greek pharbizon. Pharbizon, larger the number of these F centers means larger the number of these electrons, more intense would be the color of system. So F center basically are responsible for giving color to crystal. Please don't get confused it with face centered cubic system. Face centered is a type of packing and F center is a defect that is observed in metal axis, one of its category, anion vacancy. So larger the number of these F centers, more intense would be the color of the system. Let us move to another category B part. Anion चले गए या दूसरा क्या था, cation extra आ गए. So extra cations. So as the name suggests, the extra cation will come and they occupy the interstitial site. They occupy interstitial site. So by now you all knows that what interstitial site is. Interstitial site is the site, the voids present in between the vacant spaces between the particles or the system. So here the common example is NaCl that sometimes changes its color to dirty yellow. Potassium chloride changes its color to violet color. Let us talk about extra cation where the example is zinc oxide. On heating zinc oxide, we know that zinc changes into zinc ion and oxygen is lost in the environment. So zinc ions are formed and electrons. So these zinc ions, they come, enter into the crystal lattice and occupy the interstitial site. So maintain this. To maintain the neutrality, some electron also come and occupy the interstitial site. Because there is no space available. Cation गया नहीं, anion गया नहीं, बाहर से कुछ cations आ गए. So बाहर से जब कुछ cation आ गए, so it changes the neutrality. So to maintain the neutrality, बाहर से कुछ electrons भी आ गए. So that electron maintains the neutrality of the system. So finally neutrality is maintained, but yes, we have extra cations that occupy the interstitial site. So they may be responsible for increase in the conductivity of the system. So that is metal excess defect. Let us talk about another category, metal deficiency defect. Second, metal deficiency. In metal deficiency, we will find only one category. Metal चला गया, metal deficient हो गया, अपनी जगह छोड़ के चला गया. So when we talk about metal vacancy, metal deficiency is there, it means where metal, it is observed when metal shows variable valency. ऐसा क्यों? Let me tell you. Variable valency. The thing is, here extra cation comes to maintain that neutrality, electron आ गए. यहाँ metal कम हो गया. तो ऐसा तो नहीं है कि प्लस को मेंटेन करने के लिए यहाँ तो माइनस आ गए, माइनस को बैलेंस करने के लिए हम यहाँ पे प्रोटॉन डाल दें. प्रोटॉन कैन नॉट कम. It's only the thing is metal can lose electron to balance that. So metal deficiency can be covered when any system changes its oxidation number. Suppose I'm having Na+, Na+, Na+. If Na shows only one valency, so this type of defect is not observed. Suppose I'll be having Fe+2, Fe+2. So metal deficiency means suppose one metal has been lost from here. So somewhere another metal changes its oxidation state to lose equal number of electron. यहाँ से +2 कम हुआ तो यहाँ पे एक इलेक्ट्रॉन उन्होंने लूज करके +2 को बैलेंस कर दिया. So it shows variable valency so that the neutrality can be maintained. So it is not observed in those cases where the variable valency is not observed. So iron which shows variable valency, one iron has been, it leaves the lattice site. So another iron atoms, to maintain the neutrality, they increase their oxidation state by the loss of electron and thus metal deficiency defect is observed. Let us talk about the impurity defect now. So impurity defect we'll discuss in ionic solid as well as